Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to call the Tisbury School Building Committee meeting to order on Monday, July 17th. Welcome to everybody. There is a sheet going around, so if there are anybody that didn't sign in, please, please sign in. We have a couple committees that have a quorum that need to be called to order, so I'll let you guys, the selectmen.
I'll call the order of to order the Board of Selectmen for July 17th at 5 o'clock. Present is Melinda Carry, Larry Gomez, Chair, and Tristan Israel will be late.
Okay, thank you. Does the planning board have a quorum?
Yeah.
Three.
Three?
There's three of you.
Three?
Where's the third?
Right here.
Dan?
Me.
Oh, I didn't see Dan. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're
all
posted,
Tisbury
right?
Planning Board.
Okay. And does SAC have a quorum? SAC, do they have a quorum? Do you guys have a quorum? I know it was posted. Yep, just do, who's the chair?
I'm over here.
Who's that? Sorry, I
No,
can't.
I'm not the chair, but I'm over here.
Oh, can somebody call it to order? I don't know who normally does your meetings.
Go ahead, Natalie.
Anybody?
Zach, call to order.
Okay. And my other school committee member, Janet, just walked in, so I'm going to call the school committee meeting to order on Monday, July 17th. Janet Packer and Colleen McAndrews. Anybody else? Does anybody else have a quorum that posted the meeting that I missed? Okay. Janet, why don't you come up? There's a seat up here. I'd rather have you front and center meeting. Okay, again, thank you. I know this was an unexpected meeting for everybody. We do have three members of our committee that are participating with remote participation. We have Reed Milne on the phone, and we have Erica Mulvey and Sean Mulvey. So if you hear people talking and you don't see the person, that's because the phones are up here and they're participating that way. We will have to have, if we have any kind of a vote tonight, it does need to be roll call as a reminder to all the committee members. Okay. So I just want to start the meeting with an explanation as to why this meeting is happening. There's been a lot of rumors and misinformation out there. I prepared something I'm going to read, so just bear with me, please. The reason for today's meeting is on June 19th, the school building committee voted 11-5 to build a new 3-story building on the current site. This was after a lengthy process of looking at multiple building and site options, public forums, surveys, presentations to town committees and department heads, and bi-monthly school building committee meetings, not to mention hours and hours of conversations that school building committee members have had with their constituents and within their own boards and committees. To remind you, the Tisbury School Building Committee is a subcommittee of the Tisbury School Committee. This committee was created as a requirement of the MSBA grant process, and its membership has a core base of 13 members, with the school committee adding 6 additional members to represent all stakeholders in this project: planning board, SAC, PTO, and community members. Any decisions made by the school building committee remain the ultimate responsibility of the school committee, and the Tisbury School Committee remains ultimately accountable. My role as chair of this committee is to act as moderator of the committee's actions. It is my job to organize the school building committee's work to make best use of the strengths different committee members have to offer. Our charge as a subcommittee is to select the most cost-effective option which meets the educational needs of our students. Let me remind you that we have been given an amazing opportunity to partner with the MSBA. Everybody okay over there?
Yeah, it's just Tristan.
And we are extremely grateful for that opportunity. The 19 school building committee members who sit on this committee agreed to serve knowing that it was an MSBA grant process and that the town must work collaboratively and in cooperation with the MSBA through all phases of the process. Since the vote on the preferred solution, I have been meeting with town department heads and committee chairs to discuss how to move forward with this project with town support. I have arranged for presentations by our OPM, Richard Marks is here from Daedalus, and Libby and Peter Tarowski from Tarowski II, our architects. We've met with the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and the Planning Board to ensure that all members are informed and given an opportunity to ask questions about the project before we start the next phase. However, while at some of these meetings, we have encountered opposition from town board and committee members who do not agree with the decision we made for the new construction. I am concerned that our town leadership is not publicly able to support our process, and this is giving the impression that the town is hedging on our decision. Which leads me to today's meeting. Once a decision is made, I expect all committee members to live with the decision and work with the decision going forward. The school building committee members have been respectful in their discussions when having a difference in opinion and listening to other members' point of view throughout this process. There have been many concessions and compromises by the by the members of this committee to date, and there will be more throughout the process, but that's what the public process is all about. With that being said, I ask all school building committee members, are you confident about the option we chose? Do you believe it will be supported at town meeting and the ballot? We have an opportunity to regroup as a committee and to have the leadership of our town support this project going forward so that we end up with a successful, fiscally responsible project for the future of our town and its students. So from this point on, this is how I'd like to run the meeting. I know there's a lot of people here that have a lot of interest in this project. We do have some time constraints with some members that can't stay a really long time, and we have our OPM and our architect have to get the vote. So I know that there are groups of people represented here. I'd like to give 10 to 15 minutes for somebody representing each group, if you're here with a group, comments. It's not going to be questions, it's just going to be comments. We've had a lot of opportunity for public comment, but I know tonight's important. At that point, we're going to move on to committees that are here that are represented. A lot of people posted committee agendas and took the time to come, and I would like to hear from the committees, and then it's going to come back to the school building committee, and it will end with the school building committee. Okay, so I will open it. I hope that if you're here with a group and there's people that came together to support a certain opinion or cause, that you can respect not having everybody from that group speak, especially if you have the same opinion. But we would like to hear from people. We appreciate the time that you took and the interest and the support you have with this project. So I don't know if there's anybody. I know we have SAC members here. We can wait to go. We have some, I'm not sure. Can you just everybody introduce themselves, and if you have anything you want to say about why you're here, that's great. But I'm going to ask for everybody about a minute or so, just so we can give 10 or 15 people an opportunity.
Sure.
I know it's important. I'm not trying to cut anybody off. It's just we want to get a lot done tonight.
Hello everyone, my name is Melissa Ogden. I'm a special education teacher here at the Tisbury School. I'd like to offer my sincere gratitude to Mrs. McAndrews and the rest of the building committee members. You folks have given countless hours away from your families, working through the process of this very important building project for our kids. If you ask any of my colleagues here at the Tisbury School, they would tell you they chose the field of education because they love kids. Every avocation, decision, and action put into play is fueled by what is in our students' best interest. We don't always agree, but regardless, our intent always comes down to what is best for our children and their learning. As a parent of a child at the Tisbury School and as a teacher here, I will speak for my colleagues when I say it's difficult to listen to others advocate for designs that do not put our students' best interests first before anything else. Ideas that will impact our children, from classroom displacement to the loss of entire school community spaces such as the gymnasium, are not in the best interest of students and their learning, no matter how temporary they are. This building project is for our children. Let's not lose sight of this. We are so fortunate as a school community that we have been chosen by the Massachusetts School Building Authority to receive funding for this project. As we all know, less than 10% of applicants are chosen. This is such a great opportunity for our kids that shouldn't be taken for granted. A new 3-story building, as voted by majority from our building committee, will have the least amount of impact and disruption to student learning. My fellow teachers and I are in full support of this decision, not because it's what we want, but rather because it is in the best interest of our children. Please remember this project is for them.
Thank you. And I just want to remind everybody, MVTV is taping, and we have one other individual in the back that's taping, just so everybody's aware of that. Anybody else? Anybody? Yeah?
Hi.
Just introduce yourself, please.
I'm Emily Solaraza. I'm a parent of a person going into 3rd grade and someone starting kindergarten this year. I have to say I have just the very best things to say about the school. I absolutely love it. I've had a fantastic experience, and I'm hoping that that will continue. And echoing what was just said on all accounts, I also just wanted to say that I know so many parents like myself who haven't been able to attend the meetings and be heard. This is the first one I've actually been able to get to. And, you know, from what I hear from a lot of people who are parents as well, this is what we want. We want the new school. People were losing sleep, including myself, before the last vote, and very relieved that people are thinking of our children as we make this transition, and also for the future students here, because it's so important that we make it work, not just for now, but also for down the road. And I don't see how you can, you know, sort of, you know, try and make something that isn't even working now, try and work for the future. It just doesn't make sense. And to displace them and have no community of the students together, no playground, no lunchroom, no gym for at least 2, probably longer, because projects always take longer, especially renovations. It's just not fair to them. And if we're not serving our students now, how can we say we're serving them then? Because we'll probably outgrow what we do in making this fit for the students later. So it's just going to happen to more students again at some point. So I just feel like, you know, because the building will be more energy efficient, taxpayers will save more money in the future, we won't have to revisit this down the road a little bit, we'll just take care of it all at once. It just makes so much sense on so many levels. But personally, I just wanted to say as a parent that I'm very concerned about the detriment that will come to their learning to be in trailers and separated from the rest of the community. There will not be a school community for at least those years, and then trying to rebuild it back over the next few years. And people have also been saying, including myself, that they would consider school choice in a heartbeat to not be part of that. And that would be very sad for Tisbury in a big way. So I just really hope you honor the decision that has already been made and all the work that's already gone into it, and just keep moving forward. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yep.
My name is Richard Brew. First of all, let me thank you for your excellent preface to the meeting, because I think it made it very clear what the process is and why we're here. I'm a parent and a taxpayer. I'm a builder. I don't want my son educated in a trailer. I want my son educated in a new school. He may get into 1 year of it, but that's okay. As a builder, it's impossible to calculate the cost of rebuilding the structure. And it never stops, and it's never correct. My last point is that nostalgia is a wonderful thing, but I don't want somebody's nostalgia about the school that they went to enter into a decision process that has an effect on the population of our students at the Tisbury School. It's a sad fact of life. But we're moving forward. I think you guys have done a great job, and I hope that we can continue with the process as you've laid it out.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah? There was somebody, I'm sorry, you had your hand up, and then Henry will come to you after this, the other hand up. Kristen's, okay.
My name is Kate Scott.
Can you just speak up a little bit so we can all hear you? Sorry.
I certainly understand how parents don't want their children to be subjected to disruption. I feel that point means that we're planning for what we were told would be a 16-month of disruption, a window of disruption. We're doing 50 to 75-year planning on the basis of avoiding a 16-month situation. And while no one likes disruption, it's not all negative. And when I was in this school, actually, there was a lot of crowding, and we had to have double sessions for a number of years because we were in the baby boom. But we did survive that disruption. Regarding the aspect of nostalgia, I don't think it's pure only nostalgia when one wants to really preserve a historic building that's a very solid building and that has many very nice design features about it. And so I think that when people bring forth arguments to preserve and expand and make the most of this building and this site, the way it is now, the existing building, to completely kind of devalidate that by saying that it's only nostalgia driving that. I just reject that interpretation. I don't think that the community has gotten a complete view or option of what the renovation and expansion could mean, both financially, fiscally, and in terms of how it could fulfill the needs of the children. And just to make one more brief point, when I attended the forum that was held in June, all of the teachers who spoke there made a point of saying that they could deliver a first-class education to the children, to the children in the school in their classes, regardless of which option was chosen. And so I think that we have to bear that in mind. And we all love children. I mean, we all love our children, and we have different interpretations of what's best for them. Not only the teachers' interpretations, but there are other ways of looking at what's best long-term for children.
Thank you. Henry?
My name's Henry Stevenson. I wanted to speak just to the question of the site planning and layout that we're talking about. If you decide that you're going to stay in this building while a new one is built, that means that the new building is going to be built in a separate location on a lower area closer to the neighborhoods. This building is located where it is right now for a reason. It sits at the crest of the hill, the slopes away on both sides. The facade that faces the William Street side is really a beautiful old building facade, and it's something that you might want to keep. On the other hand, if you look to the other side of the school, toward the Spring Street side, there is an enormous amount you can do, and it would be wonderful if you could sort of move in that direction with the new building and put in everything that you could possibly need for your new school. And in the process, respect the decisions that were made initially 100 years ago to make this building where it is and why it looks the way it does. It looks like a two-story building because it's got another level that's kind of halfway down and so on. So you have an opportunity. It's not just nostalgia. This is a really good design for a building that's located where it ought to be. But going forward, there's a lot more to do, and if you head toward the Spring Street side, there's a lot to do there. You have a calamity of sidewalks and parking on that side. You've got that crosswalks and so forth. The whole territory on that side could be a lot better designed, and in the process, you could create a building, and a new building, old building, that's much more of a communal space, that you have a place for people to gather. If you had your cafeteria on that side, if you had entries coming from that side, you would have a different design. And so that's the kind of design opportunity that was not shown in the sample options that the committee was looking at. Looking at one simple and not very impressive restoration project, and there are a lot better ways of doing it, and if we could take time to study those options, people would be a lot happier to accept that point of view. As for the temporary buildings, they are classrooms, not trailers, and I think that that's something that has to be understood separately. But I'm just talking about site planning and layout. This is where the building ought to be, and if you want to build a new building, you'll either have to tear this whole building down anyway, so it's just where you have to have a building.
Thank you. I saw his hand go first, and then we'll come to this lady here.
Yes,
You can speak up, because you're pretty
sure.
far in the corner.
My name is Harold Chapdelaine. I'm a Tisbury resident and have been since the year 1999. I served on the building committee for the regional high school. I was a Up Island School representative during the regionalization project, as well as the construction of the additions at the West Tisbury School and the Chilmark School. So I come to you with a little bit of history and experience in this area. There are a number of points that I would like to make, and I think one of the most important pieces here, when we look at the taxation number, and we all read the article in the paper, we know that basically it's $100 on the 100,000. I think it's really important for us to look at this as a community beyond just a school, because we will face the construction of a town hall. We will face the construction of a police station. And I think that it's incumbent upon the building committee, the school committee, and all of us to weigh all of these things in that economic process. To look at it as an isolated situation is really doing a disservice, because the burdens of taxation that are coming down the line could prove debilitating to many. Certainly, fixed income people in our community will struggle. Entry-level people in our community will not be able to afford it. As you take the impact of $100 on the 100,000 to a $750,000 to $850,000 house, which is becoming the median in the town, and they're renting to the very students you plan to educate, the landlord will not absorb that increase. It will be deferred to the tenant, and the tenant will depart. And so we will lose the very people that are coming in to the school to be educated. There's a piece that needs to be weighed up. The other thing I'd like to
I'm
address
gonna
is...
ask you just to wrap, like, get to your final thoughts.
Yeah, well,
please.
there's a few, and they all deserve consideration. And that is our experience in the building Up Island as well as the high school is that MSBA student projections were wrong, not occasionally, every single time. In the West Tisbury school, they missed the number, and we put an addition, and we put an addition. Same thing happened with the high school. So those projections, I believe, are skewed on a regular basis, and a little bit more work needs to go into that. Look at what you have for developable land, look what you have, you know, for that permitting process. What's the average age of the people being permitted? You can start to see who your families are going to be over the next 5 to 15 years. It's not a difficult process. And it proved accurate in West Tisbury, but was discounted by the state. And they said, no, our formula is right. They were wrong. That brings me to Mr. Brew's point. In West Tisbury, we finished an addition, and what did we need? We needed portable classrooms. So the graduating class from the regional high school of 2001 and 2002 spent multiple years in portable classrooms at the West Tisbury School. Academically, those two graduating classes have fared very, very well. A very cohesive group of people, so that I'm getting to this woman's point over here, that disruption can often be bonding. It's how we manage people. Buildings don't teach, teachers teach. And I think that's an important, thank you. I think there's an important piece that we have to take
Can I
into
just ask
play.
you to make your final comment, please? I'll give you 3 minutes. I want to make sure that people have opportunity.
Yes, that's okay.
Thank you.
The other component about the debate over whether or not that you can project renovation costs accurately, I've been a general contractor for my entire career. I primarily work in the renovation industry. Yes, if you do your homework, you do your background, you have good engineers, you have good architects, a structure like this, you can nail down your numbers. I think it is fiscally and prudently responsible to look at the renovation of this building. I'll speak further as a town committee member later and turn the floor over to the next person. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Does somebody else get?
My name is Julie Robinson. I live in West Tisbury, but I'm a taxpayer in Tisbury. I think it would be a shame to tear down a 90-year-old building that's so well built. I think that you can have a renovation, gets rid of the renovation they did, I don't know, 20-something years ago with that little white building that's attached on the side, do a walkway between the two and take part of this side of the building. But to tear this down, you're not going to have anything built as well as this is. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. All right, we can have one more comment. We'll give it 15 minutes. Is there anybody else that would like to say anything that represents a group that hasn't been? Yep.
I represent SAC, the school.
Can you just make sure everybody can hear you?
Melinda Carry. You know, it's frustrating to sit here and listen to people who maybe haven't sat through a lot of the meetings with the 4 very clear proposals that were made by the architects and the people. I mean, I've sat through many meetings. That there was the renovation and addition, and the possible new schools on the 2 sites. And, you know, while I may not agree with what the building committee chose, because I would love to see it on the Mantle site, I still respect their hours and hours of input. And we spent, as a town, I believe $800,000 to pay people who knew what they were doing to come up with these designs. I'm not an architect, I'm not a builder, I can't say and sit here what would be the best thing, but I trust someone who, we hired, who's done this before, who has built schools before, who knows what kids need, and, I respect nostalgia and I respect that this was a good building in 1929 and probably in 1959, maybe even in 1995, but I really don't think that it's what could be the best thing for our children now, and, maybe people needed to look at the man and say that they wanted to keep this building, but that was not the decision that was made by what seems like over 50% of the committee. So, I just have to say for myself and for many, many people that I've talked to, I don't think that it's fair to ask our amazing educators to do more than they need to educate our children. We have these people who we trust with, little people who are going to be big people someday. And, if we build them a new school, they'll have the nostalgia of the new school that maybe people have now. And they'll say, hey, you know what, I got this unbelievable education. I got to be in the front runner of a new school. We got to have these amazing things instead of my daughter saying she can barely finish her lunch because they have 20 minutes and by the time they can do stuff, it's a little bit, it just seems not fair, to the kids. I get that this is where we are, but I really feel like we need to support the people that we put in place to make this decision. And if the vote was 11 to 5, that this is what they want and this is what the percentage of people want, then I really think we should respect it.
Thank you. Try to keep it brief, I'm
Yes, I
sorry.
can.
I don't want to
I
stifle
can't.
you, but
I didn't know if I was going to comment. I have a lot of thoughts swirling through my head. My name is Dawn Warner, and I'm a former parent. I have a son who's entering sophomore year of high school. Former SAC member, and have had the pleasure of working with these really hardworking folks through the meetings, through the forums, through the application to the school building authority. And I'm also a teacher of 25 years. I run preschool. So I think that the idea here is to separate what children need going forward and what this building represents. The reason we're here, the reason we're this far in the process is because we have been determined to have a school that is undersized, not suited for 21st century learning. We have some infrastructure issues, but the infrastructure issues are tiny compared to what children need in this century and what they need moving forward. It's just an inadequate space. It's lovely, and I understand people's emotional attachment, but having just finished a year talking about the rights of children in our classrooms, in our space, and part of this is children have the right to a new school. Teachers have the right to up-to-date technology. They certainly can work under conditions that are less than desirable, but our kids deserve more than that. We have funding on the table that will help get us there, and I just believe we should just grab that, make the decision that's good for the future of this town. I do, like I say, respectfully understand the views of the people who think this is a lovely building, as do I. But at some point, we have to balance the rights of the children and the rights of the parents in this community with the infrastructure. And I think for me as a parent and as a teacher, it's overwhelmingly obvious what needs to be done. So,
thank you. I want to give the committees a chance that are here, so that, because they all have representation on the board, but they've all taken the time to post their meetings. I want to make sure that the people that aren't a representative on the board have an opportunity, because they're the leadership of our town, and I think it's important to hear from them. So I don't know if the Board of Selectmen have any comments. Tris, do you want to join us at the table?
Oh, I didn't know there was a seat. I'm good.
Oh, you have a
The work,
seat.
I had a long day. I'll let Larry and
Anytime.
Melinda carry the fort. I just one thing to say, and that, which I know we've all worked hard. Two things. I want to do what's going to pass at the ballot at this point in the community. So that's, I think, real important that we have, because we don't want to go through all this work and have it fail. And I do respect the process of the committee. I think, Colleen, you've been, I gotta say, I know you've really tried hard, and it's been difficult. The other thing I just want to say on all of this, and I don't know what's more expensive or less expensive, but Harold touched on it. We got to get the price down, whatever. I'm saying this to the committee and everybody else, and I'm not saying we have to take $20 million off the price, but we got to get this thing down, because it is, in my opinion, I don't know how, it's very difficult to live here for working people, as everybody here knows, number one. Number two, we want, I was at one of those housing seminar meetings this year, and there was a young teacher, very talented and obviously very passionate about her students, who was like, I don't know if I can stay here. We can't find a home. So when we put $600, $700, $800 on somebody's taxes, I'm just saying there's another, so this really, maybe this isn't about which option to choose. It's with all the options. We've got to get, and I'm not saying do a $10 million thing. I'm just saying we got to, in good faith, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 million, whatever it is, take off whatever we can, because I don't know how we're gonna, I'm really scared about that. And maybe I'm being selfish, because in the end, when it's all done, the people that get yelled at for taxes, are the selectmen. And I think we are, and I think the fellow members of my board share that concern too. So we really got to sharpen our pencils, and whichever option. And the other thing is to think long and hard, and you guys are out in the community, so you talk to people, you talk to teachers, you talk to former students, people who've lived here, what's going to pass at the ballot. And I think that's what's important at this point. So.
Thanks, Tristan. Larry, do you have anything to say?
Well, I sort of agree a little bit with Tristan. I was a Reno add-on person. But after hearing a few other people tell me the needs of the educators and the students, especially with the SPED programs, I think I'm in favor of a new school now, only because we have to move on. We can't just keep debating this, because the dates are going to come up where we have to submit something to the MSBA, and if we don't meet those dates, the whole thing could go south and we get nothing. So I'd rather have a new school than no school.
Do you want to say anything now, or is it wait till?
Wait, I'm the one who has to vote for these guys.
Yep, so I just want to give everybody an opportunity, because this is.
So do they do. They do too.
It's an amazing thing to have all these boards in one place and to be able to have this discussion. That doesn't happen very often, so I want to make sure that everybody's given their time, and that people can hear it. John, do you have anything to say as the town finance director? I'm not to put you on the spot, but I want to give you an opportunity. You can pass if you want. Okay, great. Planning board.
Do you want?
So Ben's here. Yep.
Yeah, I think what Tristan is saying is more.
Oh,
Ben
sorry.
Robinson, Tisbury Planning Board Chair. The cost is a real hurdle for the town, and if we look at the most recent assessment information that's coming in, the high end of the market is cooling off. And that means a shift of the tax burden to the middle, lower end of the market. And those are the school, parents, teachers, the year-round community on the island.
Just a little louder, please.
So the option that hasn't really been on the table is a renovation addition that looks at the program in a way that brings the cost down. Mm-hmm. We've set an academic program out that meets the MSBA requirements and actually goes beyond it by a little bit. And through a renovation addition project, the MSBA can support you even if you don't totally meet their standards. And as a community, we have to be realistic about what standards we can afford for our students. The teachers are the value here. The building that they teach in, I mean, this building is not that bad. You walk around it, it's still functioning. And the teachers, I mean, you guys are doing a great job teaching in this, and look around. We've got up-to-date computers. We've got the lights are on. The air conditioning is working. This building can function. If we're going to spend $30+ million, it's hard to stomach the fact that you would also throw away something that represents a history of the town. And we talk about like doing this for the students. Part of doing stuff for the students is teaching them about values in life. And preservation is an important value in life, that throwing away something for something new has its purpose sometimes, but so does preservation. And community preservation is an important thing. It's about the continuum of history, and so that people go to this school and recognize they went to a school that somebody, maybe their grandparent, went to. People go to Harvard and they walk into an old building and they recognize that history, and it gives them a sense of the community that they're in. New buildings don't really do that. Maybe in 100 years it'll do that, but the new building is not projected to last that long. And so I think we should evaluate what kind of cost savings can be done through a renovation addition process, and then know what that number is and know what we give up. And if we're giving up too much of what our educational responsibilities are, then we can move forward with a new school or a larger addition. But we haven't seen that. We haven't seen what is the low end. We know what the high end is. We need the low end, and we need to know where in the middle we can land.
Thank you. Do you have anything for school committee? All right, I know we've heard from SAC already, so if that's, with SAC, are you with SAC? Okay, we're staying with the committees and the boards right now, if that's okay. And then I'm gonna give our OPM and our architect, and, I do have a letter from, Jay Grandy, who's our town administrator. He is on the school building committee. He's on vacation, he just thought he's not gonna be back for a couple of weeks, and he sent a letter he'd like me to read, when we had this discussion. So, he said, "The old school is an important structure for the town with strong emotional attachments for many residents. It would be great to see this building preserved if the cost benefit is there to do so with the renovation and expansion option. The conceptual design and revised grading plan for the new school option are heading in the right direction as well. I just want to indicate that I can support either the existing renovation with expansion or new construction. The recent presentation by Daedalus and T2 at the Selectmen's meeting convinced me that both options are viable, except that the construction budget would be more predictable and current cost estimate is substantially less for new construction. Further, the programming needs of the educators and students are more easily achieved with new construction." That was Jay Grandy, who's our town administrator. I don't think I missed any boards or committees. We have our... Sorry?
Tisbury Historical Commission. I am chairman of the Tisbury Historical Commission.
Okay, and there's something else?
Functioning town board.
Okay, and you want to say something that you haven't said?
I'm going to reiterate and not repeat much of what's been said. This building is a WPA structure. It is built to standards that we don't even approach in building today. And the concept of tearing down a building that is approaching 100 years old and replacing have a 100-year projected lifespan is brutally irresponsible. The other part of this is the environmental impact of tearing down and disposing of this entire structure. Certainly, the insides are going to go, but that brick structure is something truly worthy of our preservation and our respect. It is that connection to the past of the town of Tisbury, and it should be preserved. And it looks from an economical standpoint, it could be and may very well be the most feasible. And I do believe that we have a responsibility to the elderly. The children have rights, the teachers have rights, but our retired and our aging community have rights also. And those rights should be a predictable and responsible tax burden. Those are my points, and Tisbury Historic will look into the demolition of this further. Thank you.
So, Dr. DeAndre, our superintendent, do you have any comments?
Sure. I don't know how much I can say that hasn't already been said, but there's a couple things. I really respect this process. This process is in place. This was put in place by MSBA because they know it works. It's well thought out. It's time tested. It's inclusive. We have been vigilant in following the process along. We started out looking at different sites. I was a very strong supporter of the Mantor, and there were many who were. That was a very close vote. When the Mantor site got eliminated, everyone on the committee accepted it, even though I think it was 8-7. And there was much deliberation when looking at whether we were going to do a new school or a renovation. Lots of discussion around some of the things we're talking here about getting into this building, around modulars, construction costs, things of that nature. And the vote was 11 to 5 in favor of a new building because of the opportunities it will present for our students. It's less expensive. It offers more opportunities for our kids. It keeps them out of modulars. And I think it's a decision that was made in the best interest of our students.
Give the architect.
Thank you.
Our principal, John Costa,
Sure.
if anybody hasn't met him, an opportunity just to.
Thank you, Colleen. If I may, just a moment to talk about the education plan or the education program, which was part of our submittal to the MSBA. And it was fun and gratifying to participate and write in that because it validated the great things that go on at this school and have for a long time in terms of our programming, what we offer to kids. What we proposed, what we submitted to the MSBA is what we have now. No excess. Sure, some of the spaces are different. There are more spaces, and that reflects current trends in education. It may be surprising to some people. It has been surprising to some people, even those who are intimately connected with the school community, to know that our demographics have changed. Who attends the Tisbury School? Of our roughly 315 students, over 80 of those students are English language learners. English is not their primary language. We've increased staffing to meet those students' needs. We don't have adequate space to perform that teaching. Similarly, someone mentioned, I think it was Larry, special education. We have 2 resource rooms, which special education spaces are commonly called, 2 for 9 grade levels of students. Again, we need, and it's not just the Tisbury school staff saying that, the MSBA validated that when we applied and were accepted, and less than 10% of communities who apply are accepted, it validated that the facility, the school, does not have the adequate spaces to meet our students' growing and changing needs. So the education program reflects that. It has more spaces, but it's not excess. And I encourage anyone who's interested in reading it. It's online. It's through the school project website. It's exciting to see that we have a world languages Spanish program, which we offer to students in grades K through 8. That's a wonderful thing to offer to kids. Music, instrumental music, vocal music, visual arts. A maker space may be something, if you read that, it may be confusing. That's a very current, recent trend in education where students get some hands-on applications. It's part of the whole STEM or STEAM advancement. So it's exciting to include those things in our ed plan or our ed program. But I do want to clarify that there's no excess in there. What we offer to kids now, we hope to continue to offer to them. We just need the appropriate spaces in which to do so.
OPM Daedalus, Richard Marks from Daedalus, an opportunity to comment, and also our architect, if you guys have anything.
Sure, I'll go first. So I'm Richard Marks, Owner's Project Manager from Daedalus Projects. I've been working with the group for about a year. I just want to say very briefly, schedule is very important. The inflation factor here is $200,000 a month. So the cost increases every month by $200,000. So the more we study, the more it will cost. And that's just a fact of life. So, we have done, you guys have been doing studies since 2012, I think, on this building. It is time to move forward. I had to cancel a conference call that we had scheduled with the MSBA last Thursday so that we could have this meeting. We really want to move forward. We have another meeting scheduled for Friday. I think it's very important that the project move forward in one direction or the other. I'm not going to cite a preference for either direction, but we want to move forward. We want to go into schematic design, so there's still another 4 months of design to take place before the budget is set and before we're locked in to the total cost. So that the time is not yet over for people to look at the2 to give input, and we're going to have several more forums about the design moving forward. And then I do want to touch upon 2 other good points that have been made. One is the size of the building, which is for new construction, 79,000 square feet. For a reno ad, about 82 to 84,000 square feet. It's bigger because renovation takes more space because of the links and because of the inefficiencies. We do have expansion space built into that, because I totally agree. I think the 285 enrollment projection, at least for the first 5 years, is going to be low. But because we're doing 2 sections per grade, we can go from 14 to 16 to 18 kids within a grade without running out of space. And the cafeteria will be adequately sized. We're only planning on 2 seatings per day. If we had to go to 3, we still could do that. So I do want to reassure people we have internal expansion without needing to do an addition to the space, which I think is important. I think those are my central points that I wanted to.
Thank you. Peter?
Peter Turowski, T2 Architecture. I'd like to reiterate what Richard said about us being at the end of one phase, which was a conceptual design phase, and arriving at a solution and moving into a schematic design phase. We've heard some criticism about our designs, and this isn't the end. Yep. This isn't the end of design. We'll be looking further at design issues as we move forward, regardless of which option is decided upon. I'd like to touch upon the statement about lifespan of building, because I think there's a misunderstanding of that term. The 50-year lifespan is a requirement for any public building. We have to design a building that will last with normal maintenance 50 years. It's not the end of the life of the building any more than it would the end of the life of this building in 50 years. The building will last 100 years, 150 years with proper maintenance potentially. So it's not a 50-year building that's going to be torn down in 50 years. In terms of the structure, I hear a lot of things about this, the robustness of the structure, the strength of the structure, the sturdiness of the structure. If you talk to the students here, there's a lot of issues with sound in this building because the interior framing, although it was built with masonry bearing walls in the exterior, the interior framing is a very light mixture of steel and wood. Sound transmission between floors is very disturbing and disruptive to students during the day. We've heard that a lot from students as we talk to them. We have reviewed the building with the Mass Historical Commission. They found no historic significance in the building. I know that doesn't overweigh the local nostalgia for the building or the local desire to preserve it, but the state has weighed in on it. And then in terms of program, what I heard about not having reviewed another option about ad reno, we had a charge to look at ad reno and new building to meet an educational program. So when we looked at this building, we initially thought it would be very difficult to meet the educational program in this building. We assumed that the interior of the building was all masonry bearing wall like the exterior of the building. So what we found is it is not. It's a light steel frame construction with flexible, movable walls. We can change the interior. So what we did, which I think was the fair thing to do for the committee, was to represent 2 projects that could meet the educational program in terms of space. And that's what we presented. Just a little correction on the square footage. It's 80,400 square feet for reno and 79,700 roughly for new. So it's only about 600 square feet difference.
Thank you, Peter. And just, I don't think the committee's aware, Richard and I went to the MV Commission this week. We weren't asked to go there. We thought we'd be proactive, and they are very excited about this project and offer their help at any time, so that was a good thing. And we will be holding in August an open house specifically for seasonal residents that don't have an opportunity throughout what we call the school year to see the school and weigh in on the school. So just so everybody knows, it'll be something open to the public. We'll announce that also. Okay, committee members. Anybody? Dan?
I just like to comment, make a couple comments, suggestions. I'm Dan Seidman. I'm on the planning board and also on the school building committee. This process, and I've sat through these, we talk about how we've looked at these options. I don't know that we've really put, and people are probably going to get irritated by this, a lot of time in exactly what each option means. The building itself, and this was, I have to thank Ben Robinson for actually getting into the nitty-gritty of the CMR 963 Massachusetts School Building Authority. I feel that we weren't quite given all the information that might have made a difference. Reconstruction, renovation, and repair projects actually can have a slightly different configuration than a new school. if the building was of a nature that the standards of educational adequacy of the existing facility that were constructed in accordance with the standard and guidelines that prevailed at the time of construction, then you can actually leave the room sizes alone, if I interpret that correctly. So I hear, all these rights, children's rights, taxpayer rights, this, that, and the other. I don't think this has anything to do with rights. I think it has to do with education. So a good teacher is going to educate the children in whatever size space they have. And if they can't do that, then they shouldn't be a teacher. Maybe that's harsh, but that's the way it is. So when we looked at this building, had we been given this information that a renovation could be treated slightly differently, then maybe that would have had a different outcome. Now, I understand the cafeteria. You got to get a new cafeteria. Nobody questions that. Nobody wants their children having three different meal sessions. That's just crazy. But that's what we have at the moment. The English is a second language. We understand we need more space for that. Great. Add that. The ELL, is that what it's called for disabled? I don't know what that is.
ELL is
Special ed, okay.
yeah.
Special ed. We need more space for that? Great. All these things can be done in the addition to this building. The building itself, I don't really care about nostalgia. What I care about is it's a well-built building. It's withstood 3 hurricanes. We're hardy, East Coasters, what we call a nor'easter, other people call tornadoes. There's been countless numbers of those. So the building itself is a good building. People from here have gone to Harvard, Princeton, military academies, SCAD, any kind of private school you want to think about. So the education that children are receiving from here is exceptional. Exceptional. Thank you. Easy for me to say. And I think the teachers are doing a great job. And I think they'll continue to do a great job, regardless of what the option is. But the preservation of this school allows us a couple things. If we can keep the room sizes, and I know there's going to be debate on that, and again, in the addition, you can make some bigger ones, you can have all these maker spaces, you get the cafeteria in that area, but we have a gym right now. If we took that gym and we made it 2 stories, and you take the stage out, all that space can be repurposed. I don't know how it would work, but it could be repurposed. Then we have, from there, you look at these other things that we have to do, cafeteria, ESL, special ed, whatever other spaces could be put into this addition. And I think by looking at something like that, we can bring the total size down, we can bring the total cost down, and we can still meet the educational requirements of the children, which is the bottom line of what we're trying to do. We want to educate our children in the best way possible, and I really feel that a renovation, and it does say we have to, basically lobby the education board to get permission to do it, but it doesn't say it's out of the ballpark, and I just feel that had that information been put at the front of this session, when we started this committee, maybe the result would have been different. It's just, it bothers me that we had to ferret this out and that the information wasn't freely presented to us. And that I do feel was an oversight on the OPM and the architect's part. That's my personal opinion. But I would just like to, I'm not trying to beat this horse, to death. I just want to get the best possible plan for everybody at the best possible cost and meet all the education needs that we need to meet. And it appears we can do that with this building and an addition. Thank you.
Sure. So I did speak.
Hold on one second.
Yeah,
Richard's
sorry.
going to respond to the waiver.
Yeah, real briefly. So, having heard some discussion about this Friday and over the weekend, I did call the MSBA and talk to them a little bit about classroom size, because I've been concerned, as many people have, about 900 square foot classrooms for 14 to 16 to 18 kids. Chris Alice from the MSBA reiterated that the classroom is the most important thing to them, and they would really they felt strongly that the minimum, which is on their guidelines, should be maintained if at all possible. So that in that 900 square foot classroom block, they felt was very important. As Peter said, and if you look at the renovation options that we presented, we, by the way, do have 900 square foot classrooms, which is the minimum size per the MSBA. Those are represented in the renovation scheme, and what we did is we matched that up to the educational program that John talked about. So I think to suggest that information was withheld is really an overstatement. In fact, what was given to you was a design which met the educational program, which is our charge. We worked hard on the educational program for several months with staff, students, parents, community members, administration, all in discussions. We're going in front of the FAS on Friday for further discussions. If anything, they may increase that program a little bit, but obviously we can try to push back on that. But Chris said today to me, and he's our MSBA representative, I think you have a pretty efficient building, and I think you have a pretty good design. So, and that's after looking at it for 2 weeks. I don't think we have anything to hide, nor do I think that we haven't been forthcoming with respect to meeting the MSBA's requirements.
Okay, the only thing I would say is because it's a renovation, it does fall under different guidelines that we could use, because obviously these were the standards at the time the building was constructed.
Correct.
And it specifically states that in the section 2.08.
Correct.
3.
But Dan, unfortunately for preserving these classrooms, the educational methodology has changed in 90 years. And as a result, we're looking at a different classroom configuration. We're not looking at the old cells and bells, as one of my superintendent friends calls it. We're looking at a whole different configuration of the school that is a different design than maintaining the old classroom block. It just, if you read the program, and it's, what, about 30 pages, and it's all out there, as John said, it does indicate that, and that's what we're trying to achieve.
And I would just like to say, if I could again,
speak up
quickly.
So we can hear.
As I stated before, that that the charge really was to present them equally, to present an ad reno with parity, to show that they could both meet the program. That was the goal, to show that this can do the same thing as this in a different kind of scenario and with different circumstances, but they both can meet the space requirements of the program requirements.
Erica had asked to make a comment. Erica, go ahead. Can you speak up as loud as you can just so people can hear, please?
Yes, I will do. I'm going to take you off speaker as well. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. A lot of people have said a lot of the things that I was going to say, but I would like to just respond a little bit to what Dan just said about the educational spaces and whatnot. And I feel like, Dan, there was a time, a long stretch where I think you missed a lot of meetings, and I'm not sure if you were part of the visioning workshops for 2 days, but that would have been a great time to kind of discuss those concerns. I'm not saying they're not valid concerns, but I feel like this committee really did a lot of due diligence and spending a long time discussing and really nitpicking we went through every single grade and every classroom and what the needs are and what they should look like. And so I don't want to mislead the public there in thinking that we didn't really cover that, because I feel like we did a lot of that. And I just, I'm hearing a lot of, there's a lot of folks that are having a hard time with, the decision that the committee made. And I get it. I understand this is a hard decision and not everybody's going to be happy with the outcome. And quite frankly, a lot of people that voted initially for the Mantor site did that because they didn't want to see the building come down. That's not an easy decision to do, and we the committee understand that. However, it was a very strong will of the town to have the school stay put where it was, and so those of us that really wanted to see the school and the possibilities of the Mantor site, who were greatly devastated by that decision, we moved on from that. We understood this was a compromise, and I think Matt talked about it and Colleen talked about it, just respecting the process and working, forward, and knowing that not everybody's going to be happy, but we need to come together as a committee and as a town and build the best school that we possibly can. And I really believe that we will build an amazing school that will meet all of the educational needs and set up our kids for a great future. It will be environmentally sustainable. It'll be a smart design, and it will be the envy of every town on this island. And we already have families that are moving into our town just to attend our school. And I think that school pride will go a long way in this community. So I really want to see us work together and show the island that our town can work together on this. And so I'm really asking for everybody to support us in knowing that this is not easy and not everybody was happy. And those of us that, that were upset with earlier votes, nobody's opinion is more important than anyone else's. And that's why we have this process. For people that don't want to see the building come down, we felt just as strongly about moving it. And that's hard. But I believe we can come together and do this. And so I hope that those folks will support us. And the last thing I want to say is about the vote. Emily, a parent in the group, spoke earlier and said that, she hadn't been able to make meetings, and just representing parents, I know that it's very hard for parents to make and attend meetings, and we haven't heard their voices or seen their faces a lot at these meetings, but I know that that's just because they're busy, doing homework and running their kids around, and it's been hard, but I know that they will come out and support a vote for a new building. I'm just 100% confident about that, and I know that the committee and myself will work extremely hard to make sure that happens, because parents wanted the building to be where it was, and they felt that was more important than staying in the current building, and were willing to have it and wanted to have a new school to give our kids the best education possible. So, thank you.
Thanks, Erica. Pete, did you have a comment? Speak up.
I just would like, I'm Vit Bachelor, ancient teacher, retired, extremely frugal. I mean, frugal Fanny has nothing on me. But anyways, I wonder, Dan, have you been in the classrooms when school is in session?
Yes, my children went here.
Right, but really on a day-to-day basis. And I can make do with almost anything, and people know they give me every scrap of paper or yarn, and I have it. But in this case, the space is not adequate anymore, and it's because the mandate that come from up above, wherever that is. And I'm going to spill the beans on you, John, but there are little sessions out in the hall, and is John Schilling here? It's not okay. But what can you do? You're mandated to teach just about every level at that age level in this one little room. And where do you find a private space? That's why we were cited. That's why we have the lovely White House. And you have these mandates. You can't be in the corner of the library. I have a little session. You can't be in a room without a window for half an hour to do a special session. So you have it all in your classroom, 3 different groups going on. It's really hard. And that's why you see coats in the hallway. And I know what else is in the hallway these days. But really, so space is important. If, I come from a country where everybody faces here and you share one paper. Okay, those days are over. World War II is past, and so we need to move forward. As much as I love this building, and I'll probably buy a brick, but so I think it's cheaper too if you're talking money. But I'm not the architect. They'll tell you whether it's cheaper or not cheaper.
Any other, Melinda?
I just have a couple comments. And your mention of the word mandate really struck a chord with me, because I'm looking at across town and various mandates that we look at from the big higher level of all the town. We have ambulance and fire department mandates.
A little louder, please.
We have police department mandates. We have wastewater mandates, and these are all things that are connected to our receipt of state monies. So anytime we want something from the state, which we always do, we want their money, it comes with strings, and it comes with things that we have to accommodate to, which is, I think, why the Board of Selectmen has been saying, what about the money? Because that is going to add up when you look at across the board. And we have had to have overrides in the town for the last, 2 out of 4 years or something, and it hurts our taxpayers. So we are feeling the heavy weight of the mandates. And I am only interested in which of these options that we have before us, which is the one that offers us the most flexibility on cost. And I don't know the answer to that. And I would really love to get the answer to that, because once I get that, I'll be comfortable that we have done the most we can to address the cost of this project.
Richard, do you want to?
Well, flexibility in construction is a hard term to necessarily answer definitively, but in terms of the cost estimates as they now have been developed, which is based upon the program, as we've talked about, as Peter said, $80,400 for renovation addition and $79,000-ish for new construction. That is about $3 million less total project cost for the new construction option. And that's due to a number of factors, efficiency being one, the cost of modulars, which is not reimbursed by the state, being another, and then there are various formulas within the mandate that go up and down for the two options. But in the net cost to the town is about $3 million more. In terms of flexibility, obviously if you renovate less of a space, it costs less. So if you leave structure in place, ceilings in place, and so forth, you don't spend as much money. But this building, as Peter said, doesn't really lend itself to a piecemeal renovation. We have multiple levels. We have a relatively non-robust structure that needs to be upgraded to current codes. The exterior of the building is a mess. I know people like its looks, but you can just look, even in this 1995 edition, the windows have failed. You have duct tape over air intakes. You have a lot of issues here that don't really come out until you really look hard at it, and that the entire existing conditions report is on the web. But the building needs a lot of work. So flexibility, honestly, I do believe you have a little more flexibility with new construction. But of course, that's determined by exactly how much renovation you do. But to bring the building up to code and beyond, and for a 21st century program, it needs an awful lot of work, even that 35% that we would renovate. So that's the simple answer, as much as I can give it.
Maybe Sean? Sorry.
You can go.
I don't know whose hand was up first, but everybody will have a
You can go,
chance to
Sean.
speak.
I'm Cheryl Doble. I'm on the planning board and also coordinate the Vision Council. And I have been a supporter of the renovation because I feel that there is value in this building, and an important value. It speaks to this community and how we valued education over the years. It's part of our historic landscape. As we start to remove buildings from the landscape, we lose that thread of history, which currently reads in this town. And so this has been a concern of mine. I regret, and maybe it was done but never really fully presented, but as Bennett mentioned, I wish, as we were looking at all these alternatives, and we looked at a lot, and I appreciate all that you brought forward, but the one we never really looked at least in terms of the committee conversations, is what would a partial reno addition be? So not totally gutting, and I think you've spoken to it a bit today, but we never really had that as an option to look at. And that might have given us some difference in cost savings, maybe not. And I regret that we
maybe didn't explore that a bit more, because I think it would have been helpful to us. And so, as I look at this, my concern is I want us to go forward, and I want us to pass something at town meeting, because we need something here. And I see two challenges, and one is the cost and what that does to our tax base and to those living in the community, what it does to the other needs that we then maybe aren't able to address right away. And so finding that balance. Everybody in this committee, myself included, we really do care about the children. We also care that we leave them a town that is solid and intact for their future, because that's also important to them. So as we go forward with this, I'm hoping that the conversations can really fully play these things out, because on the one hand, there's the cost that's rising, and on the other hand, for many people, it's going to be the loss of the building. This has to pass by a 2/3 majority. And those are two big pieces that we really need to be able to address. People need to feel confident that this is the right way, and they need to understand why. And as we go forward, I think some of the things that we really valued about this building need to be seen in any new building. So the relationship of this new building to this neighborhood is incredibly important to me. The people that live here in this neighborhood around the building, they're going to experience disruption too. It's not just, it's going to be a disruption for our taxes and family finances. It's going to be a disruption for the students. It's going to be a disruption for the neighborhood. And my concern is that with leaving this building here, our options on how we use this site are limited, and I don't want that to be the case. The final thing is, as with Melinda and Tristan and others have said, I really would like us to look at cost savings. How can we bring this down? And so when Ben and others are talking about program, I think some of the things were, how can we be creative about these spaces? And how can we think about this? And because we are over the requirement of the MSBA in some areas of this. And how can that be changed in a way that it starts to bring this in line? And Richard had suggested to us, and Ben took the lead on the planning board, reading the requirements. And one of the things that is there in the end is that there are incentives. One of the incentives is for renovation, but there are other incentives for other things that we can do that give you a percentage of a reduction on some of your costs, and I would like us to explore those really fully. So I'm hoping that with whatever decision goes forward, this group has to really dig down into how this project develops, and we have to pay a lot of attention to the various constituencies that are going to be impacted, because this is serious from my point of view.
Yeah, I'm going to do Sean and Ian, and then Mary will go back.
Yeah, one thing is involved about the costs. I'm very concerned. I hear a lot of talk about options, and I hear a lot of concern about the costs, not only the capital costs, but the long-time costs. And what I think we need to do here, or could do here, is a value management seminar. And that is a very proactive thing insofar as a group of people sit down and then brainstorm the project, put everything on the table. People may laugh at you, that or not, but when we did it, we had them put $1 on the table when they said, no, it can't be done. But that does bring out a lot of good ideas. And then these are collected together and sort of looked at it in an optional way. And then they're costed for capital costs, and that's the initial cost and the long-term cost. And I found that in a lot of jobs, we've managed to save 25%, 30%, 15%, but there always has been a saving, a good saving. I think we've got to get more serious about costs, and we talk very much about doing estimates I'm not in favor of estimates alone. I'm in favor of a budget and then working together with the architect. I see designs, the cost consultant helps them with the cost of it. And then you decide whether or not you're going to pass it on to the building committee. And you're always doing it in a proactive fashion. You're not saying, that's one estimate, architect, you design, this is another estimate, and then you design. What happens in between? It usually ends up going over the budget.
Colin, I just want a very quick response. First of all, I agree with Ian. I think that's a good next step, and that will be in that next schematic design phase for the next 4 months. And just with respect to the incentive, we are assuming that we will get the incentive payment of 2% bonus for green building, and that is baked into those budgets that I've given to the town. So we are assuming that we will get those.
Sean?
Sean Evencourt, for those of you that don't know me, I'm a teacher here. I'm the teacher representative. I'm a social studies teacher, so I apologize already for the quote, but somebody was talking about responsible tax burden, and there's a couple of things I wanted to say on that. Taxes are the price we pay for a civilized society. I think it was Oliver Wendell Holmes that said that, and in many ways, these costs are not simply immediate, oh look, this is a new problem come up. These are deferred costs from a generation of children that have had less ideal circumstances in their education here. And to speak to the gentleman to speak to whomever was the person who said, the teachers in the previous, at the public forum had said they would teach or be able to teach a world-class education in any circumstance. I believe the quote was, we will make an attempt, our best attempt, to give them a world-class education in whatever form we possibly can. But absolutely, the circumstances, the size of the rooms, and the, for years, construction area that they would be teaching in will have an impact. There is no doubt about that. Not to question your educational expertise on the subject, Dan, but the 21st century learning actually looks a lot different than it did back then. I'm the teacher representative, and I have to say, and those of you that have been in the committee for a while will now hear something I've said every single time, every educational professional drastically supports new construction, wherever it happens to be. The committee voted 8-7 to put it here, so it's here. But every educational professional supports it here as a new construction site. I've not had one person speak to me in any other capacity besides new construction. It offers superior programming flexibility. It costs less money. It offers the greatest possibility to minimize or quite likely negate all deleterious effects on current students' education while maximizing future potential benefit for the town. It's a win-win, it's a no-brainer, and there's 17 million reasons or so, 16.5 million reasons from the state to take them up on it, right? I cannot emphasize enough how much the educational professionals are behind a new construction project. I 100% sympathize, and as a social studies teacher and a historian, I absolutely adore this building. I really, my father graduated from the Tisbury School. My grandfather graduated from the Tisbury High School when it was the Tisbury High School. And I graduated from the Tisbury School, and now I teach in the Tisbury School. I am as attached to this building as any reasonable person could be. And at the end of the day, when you start putting buildings before people, before students, that's not a healthy outlook. That's not a healthy way to look at things. The last thing I want to say, and then I'll get off my soapbox. When we start talking about going to the ballot and something that will pass, and I think you're totally right, we need to have something that will pass, and I think that's incredibly important. And my biggest issue with going to the ballot with an addition renovation is, how can we look at the town and say, we had a bunch of options, and we all came together and chose objectively the most expensive and potentially worst option. How do we do it?
That's respectful. Yeah.
Good idea.
I just want to keep it in the committee for now. And then I just, Larry.
It's an interesting point that you said, because as Sarah was talking, and I said I would support a new school. I hope people don't go to the ballot and vote no because they didn't get what they want. And that's not the way to vote. And if you're really passionate about this, just really get into it and start attending more of these meetings, because eventually we're going to have to start designing this building. We may have an architect's concept of what it looks like on the outside. Maybe you have something on the inside, but that's the time to start to help design this building.
Not me.
Sorry, so Siobhan hasn't had a chance, and then we'll give a break.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Larry, and thanks everybody who's talked so far. I echo a lot of the points that have been made already. Sorry, my name is Siobhan Mullen. I'm a Tisbury parent, and I'm also the president of the PTO. So I represent the parents on the committee, and in the run-up to this, I think I can just say that most of the parents that I spoke with overwhelmingly supported a new school on this existing site, which is where we're at so far with the vote today. I understand everyone's concerns about getting the vote that we need at the ballot, but I feel like as a committee we have spent a whole year just getting to this point where we actually understand the education programme and the site programme, and now that we have that, we know that our task is now educating the community and getting them to understand why we made this decision and why they need to support it. We know we have a ton of work to do. People just coming to this meeting tonight probably don't understand all of the work and all the information that we've received to this point that got us to this decision, but the Tisbury PTO and the parents worked really hard to get people to vote for the schematic design and approval that we made for the $800,000 a couple of months ago, and we fully intend on working really hard to educate the community in the next year to make sure that they know that the committee has the best interests of the children at heart, the community at heart, and to get a new school that will serve our needs for the future. So I think people have to understand that there's a ton of education to still be done. There's a ton of information the community still needs. You still probably don't have all of it here tonight, and we don't either. Peter definitely, or Richard and Peter speak to the fact that we haven't even started talking about the design yet. There was a photograph, there was a rendering that was put on the paper, and that's nothing that we've even started to talk about yet. So a lot of misinformation has gone out there a little bit, I feel, already, but we know we have a ton more work to do, and I hope the community recognises that we understand that that is our task, that is our mandate, and we're going to do it and make sure that we produce a beautiful school that people will be able to say that's another beautiful building that we're going to have in the town. It's not going to be something horrible that we're not going to like. It has to be something that we all want to embrace and support at the ballot.
Okay, so just, I am the first one to say I'm not an education professional, but when I did get involved in this, the first thing I did is I looked at who is the best in the world, and that happens to be Finland, and so I immediately bought a book on their system. They don't have standardized testing. They test one time at age 16. They are #1 in the world. All of the decisions are done at the local level. There's not this mandatory overview, the pedagogical, is that the right way you say it? Yeah. They're all masters. It's a 5-year program. The student teachers actually teach while they're in school. They have, everything in that book was about teachers. There was absolutely nothing in there about classroom size. I've looked for classroom size. I cannot find anything that equates classroom size to education. I understand this is the 21st century. I think we should be building for the 22nd century. What I would think will happen as we go forward is children are going to have their own iPads or whatever the device. Those that are quicker learning, they're all going to be in the same room, and they're going to help the ones that are slower learning, and they're going to learn how to give back from an early age throughout their entire education spectrum. So while I'm not an education professional, I am a student of learning. And so I've tried to educate myself on what is important. I'm not beholden to this school. I'm just saying it's an asset. It's an asset that's well constructed, thin framed, whatever you want to call it. It stood the test of time. And we have inadequacies. We need to address those inadequacies. It doesn't mean it needs to be a new school. It doesn't mean it needs to be 80,000 square feet. We have flexibility if we choose to do it. And that's all I'm trying to express. As far as missing meetings, yes, I did miss some meetings. I do work on the West Coast, and occasionally, a few of those meetings, I was on the West Coast. We didn't have the telephone thing at the time. I didn't even think to ask that, and that just happened at the very end, or I would have, because I believe when you're on a committee that you should attend the meetings, whatever that method and mode may be. So I'm not a professional, but I have studied things, and the classroom size is something we can go back and forth on. We know we need a cafeteria. We know we need ESL. We know we need special ed. Those are the areas where we should be looking to add those. How can we use this building? How can we repurpose it? How can we not tear things down, reuse them, and add to them so that we get this world-class education that we all want?
Jeff, yeah, you can talk.
Jeff Crystal, Finance Committee. It's nice to get a phone call in the morning and hear that we're not in our right mind, that this board is crazy, right? Well, not in our right mind is what the letter to the editor said from a ex-planning board official.
I said that.
You did, I know you did, Henry. But who in their right mind on the planning board, the past planning board, I don't want to paint anybody on the current planning board, would ever do a master plan and leave the school off in the master plan, and that's what happened years ago. So
supposed to be here.
it was not on the master plan. It was not. You can. It's my 2 minutes. It was not on the master plan. So at the 11th hour, we, in typical fashion, Vineyard fashion, stop and shop, we bash. They're gone. Let's talk about the roundabout for 2 years. That's actually, that's there, and that's not that bad, is it? How about the wastewater that we lost state funding for that for years? How about beer and wine? There were 3 people arrested last night because of the, no, there weren't actually. Nobody was arrested for alcohol. We have library additions that we're bashing now, and the reason why I bashed the library is because I didn't think we should use town funds, taxpayer money. The library has over $400,000 to spend of their own money. We talk about increased mooring fields, but nobody wants to have another mooring there so the town can help the tax burden. We have higher telephone poles that we're still complaining about on Edgartown Vineyard Haven Road. We talk about affordable housing for longer than I've been on the island. We talk about changing zoning on the waterfront, and it looks like some third world Caribbean country. And I tell you, if you don't believe me, go down there. It looks bad. We like to complain. Yes, you can shake your head no all you want. We like to complain about everything on this island, and we don't like to take action. So this board took an 11-5 decision. But we're going to come back and we're going to rehash it. And I'm glad, because this committee has had meetings for the last year, if not longer. And this is a really good committee. I mean, this is an unwieldy committee at 19 people. Yet we all get along. We really do. I don't understand, who was it, $3 million? Yeah, $3 million more. So if I'm looking from the finance point of view, it's very difficult to say renovation addition. We heard about how great the students are, how they go to Harvard. My kids didn't, by the way, but everybody else seems to go to Harvard that comes out of the school. So,
You need to talk to your
or maybe we should talk to the teachers. Oh, that's the one group that we have sat here. And you know what? If there's a single teacher out here, if they get renovation addition, if this is pushed down the can 5 more roads and you're still walking over an 8-inch hump in your classroom, or you're getting wet because the roof is like leaking and you forgot to put a barrel under it the night before, I say you start talking to some people for getting some excellent references to leave, because you guys, you're the ones that I want to keep here. The kids pass through. I want to keep the teachers here. Yet we all seem to say, oh, the teachers can deal with it. They're going to still pump out a great education for our kids. Yeah, but what happens when the teachers leave? Because people just don't like to work in lousy conditions. No matter how much you think they do, and no matter how much they can do, they don't like it. We talked about, briefly, how the tax rate and everything else, we're looking at that. Well, if you ever talk to a realtor, you'll find out that Tisbury is not a desirable place to buy a house or property in right now. Okay, and it's not that easy to get rid of it for the assessed value or more. That's why this town will find a 2.3% decrease in their assessed value this year. That's not something to sneeze at. Why? Could be a number of reasons. One is realtors, and if you talk to realtors, they say it's just not the most desirable place to buy on this island anymore. You have teachers that are going to feel the same way. It's not a desirable place to teach, and they're going to leave. And then you have this whole thing, well, if they don't have a good school system, and if they don't teach their kids, then why am I going to buy? And it just keeps going from there. John Snyder has been working very hard looking at options to help everybody. Most people, those ones that need it. We're looking at extending the bond out. We're looking at creative options. This isn't something, oh, you know what, we should probably think how we're going to pay for this. This is something that's been going on for 8 to 10 months at least. We're looking town-wide at reducing staff. If you want to spend $3 million, you're looking at half of the fire station. That was about $6 million. So that's about another half of fire station. You're looking at about a year and a half of police budget. They're about 1.9, 1.8, right around there. We have to look for ways to save money. The place to save money is not the school. It's not the teachers. It's not the students. A new building will give everybody the flexibility they need, keep the teachers in place, and the students will continue to go to the schools that my kids don't go to.
Okay, yeah, yes,
Yeah.
that kind of threw me for a minute.
Yeah, sorry.
It's still not going far.
Yes, trustee, so, yeah.
No, I just, you know, I don't want to get into the whole thing, you know, about our town, but we have much to be proud of in our town, and our democracy. We have a democracy. We're here debating. We respect each other, you know, our opinions, and you know, it's easy to run everything down. You know, and this is not about the school right now. I just want to say, you know, yeah, there's a lot wrong in our town, but there's a lot we can be proud of in our town, including this process right here. You know, and folks here who are not involved in local government, and I know a lot of you are raising families and doing stuff in your lives, and I'm an old guy, so maybe I have the time, but get involved. Don't just, you know, I mean, if this piques your anger or your interest one way or another, you know, get involved beyond this process, because we really need people, we need young people to get involved in this process. But, you know, I think part of the nostalgia, quite frankly, where I was at on all this, for good or for bad, I was glad they weren't going to the Mantor well. And when that ended, I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to the community. Let's do the thing that's the most viable to get through the community at a price, you know, and I think we will. I'm sure you guys will all sharpen your pencils, but we got to get this price down. But to me, I also understand, you know, I understand why people wanted to keep the old building. I think we've talked about that here. And so we need to respect that. I understand the teachers, and, you know, they want to do what's best for their students, and that's where they're coming from. So we just got, you know, but participate in the process. This is what's happening here now. And so I just don't want, you know, it's like I say, yes, we have some big problems in Tisbury. There's absolutely no question. Jeff is right about that. We also have much to be proud of in this community. I just, you know, I just wanted to remind people of that as well.
Right. All right. On that note, what we would like to have happen is for tonight, we have 13 committee members, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 15.
Colleen, can I
Yes.
ask a question?
Yes.
Are you anticipating on re-voting?
That was the plan, yes.
You've already made that decision. I'm living with the decision. Why do this all over again?
We thought
It was 11 to 5.
Yep.
And as much as I didn't like it,
I'm not going to take any more questions or comments from the public right now. Because we hit the pause button, and it was a very serious pause button hit. It took a lot of thought to do that. I want it to be very clear how we're going forward. I don't want to look back and say, well, we never got another chance and people would have done this. And I feel strongly, this is not my decision. This is the committee's decision. I'm not going to take any more from the public right now.
well, my reasoning to say that is,
If the committee wants to support the decision we made with the 11 to 5 and move forward with that, I'm fine with that. I thought a revote would be an opportunity for there to be absolutely no more questions. We've drawn a line, we're moving forward with whatever that vote is. But that's the committee's decision. You know, if you guys want to say, I think a revote would be very, a good way to move forward.
But don't make a revote just because someone doesn't like the first decision. How many times have we, the selectmen, in years past and maybe present, who have committees to make recommendations, and we disregard the recommendations? So I'm on board with your first recommendation, and that's all else, that's it.
Can we, I'm sorry, because forget about officials and everybody else, there are some members of the public, I hope you'll at least hear them.
We did hear some people at the beginning, I
would like 12 seconds of your time, please.
But I have to give everybody 12 seconds.
Yeah, that's so
Okay, all right, the committee has spoke, so can I at least ask this? If you're with a group of people that you represent, so whatever group, you all know who you came with, I'd ask that everybody only have one person from that group speak, because I'm sure you represent your group. I don't want to...
Represent me.
Okay. And I really would like to try to be respectful of the time, but absolutely. So can you just tell us who you are, please?
My name is John Guadagno. I'm a resident of Tisbury. I'm a neighbor of this school, and I'm here just to bring up, if you're intending to revote, it was not on your agenda, and I believe that's a clear violation of Chapter 20, Section 8.
It's not.
Thank you very much for your time.
You don't have to have a vote.
I appreciate everything
Okay.
you've done. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay. Yep, Roy? And your name, please?
Roy Cottrell. I'm a elected official in town, but I'm not here for official business. I'm a parent of Tisbury School kids, and I'm also a parent of a Tisbury School graduate who just recently graduated from college. Very proud of him, and I'm proud of what Tisbury School did for him. And let's see, I spent a lot of my year here as an assistant. But what everyone doesn't realize here that wants to keep this building is that we're all in this room. We're in this library right here. If we had a few more people, we couldn't be in this room. We'd be in the gym. But right now the gym is not fit for human habitation because it's 100 and something degrees in there. I don't know. That's hyperbole. I don't know the temperature in the gym. But I know that there are only 2 air-conditioned spaces in this school. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. The computer room and this space. I've been in here in this room when there was an 8th grade group here. There's ELA kids there. There's 4th grade kids here. And they're all working the hardest they can. They're all working the hardest they can. And the teachers here are doing the best they can. But the kids, it's the kids. They need a learning environment. The teachers can do everything they can to teach the kids, to educate the children, right? But if the children aren't in a learning environment, if they're sitting in a room 1 minute where the room is cold, and then they get up and they leave this classroom and they go to another one, and that room is hot, that's the learning environment that needs to be dealt with and done away with. We're here sometimes until June 30th, up till June 28th or something like that. Have you been in this building, not in an air-conditioned room, in June? And then we come back in September. It's the same conditions. It's the same. It's hot. Then we move all the way around the calendar. We have a few good months. And then we hit February.
Rory, I'm just going to interrupt you. I don't think anybody is questioning
I'm
the
just
need
saying
for-
that trying to rehabilitate this building or bring this building back, I'm at a milestone age this year, and I am nowhere near as good as I was 40 years ago.
Should be better.
My name is Angie Francis. I'm a parent who has children entering kindergarten and 1st grade next year. I'm a voting town member, but I'm also an architect. And what I would recommend to my clients when they ask about cost savings on buildings is the best way to do that is to be an effective decision maker. I feel like a decision was made on this board, and you are going to spend a lot more money asking for very talented architects to explore options that you may or may not even use because you've already made a decision. So that would just be my advice to the board if you want to talk about saving money.
Jeff Katz, quick question. When does this take its first break?
When does what?
The meeting, when is the break, is there like a scheduled break time?
No, we're probably gonna break. We don't take breaks during these meetings. Yes, you're welcome.
And they don't work.
We're also a taxpayer in the town of Tisbury. I just wanted to say I respect all the time and energy this board has given to this project, and I just hope it's a pretty clear decision, 11 to 5 versus the one that was more split before, that the energy then gets spent embracing it and moving forward instead of looking up ways that we can throw out other options, because I think the more we keep throwing out other options to the town, it gets really confusing to the taxpayers, because I think that the board is, this group is somehow overspending their money. I think that you guys have done a really great job. I think if the decision is 11 to 5, it's time to come together as a group and really support the decision to move forward and not spend our energy thinking of, well, what about this option or that option? Because I think you're right, it's going to cost us a lot more money by waiting and pausing and missing deadlines. So I'm just hoping that everyone supports whatever decision this board makes in this way.
Yep, go ahead.
I'm Jane Taylor. I'm a taxpayer in Tisbury, I teach in this building, and I graduated this year. I've spent about 20 years of my life in this building. I love this building. When I was a student here, the wing that we are standing in was added on. The kindergarten rooms, the library media center, and the science wings upstairs. It was a very, very challenging time to be a student in this building. Classes were put together. Students were often in classrooms for 3-4 hours a day with the staff rotating through to teach their classes. We were all disorganized, we had no lockers. It was a very, very challenging time. It was challenging as well for me as a student because there was no gymnasium. We went from having PE 2 or 3 times a week to having it once a week, sometimes once every other week. And as a student that needed to move around and do things, it was a very hard environment to work in, to get anything done. As much as I love this building, like I said, I've spent 20 years of my life in here. I'm 36 years old. That's a long time. I think a renovation is unfortunately not the best decision for us, for the students of this town, for what they need. I think we need to give them, they deserve a new building with a better facility, stronger facility to suit all of their educational needs and to not have their education be interrupted by construction and renovation.
Okay, I think I've heard, yes.
I want to, my name is Yang Li, I'm an educator, and I'm an educator. I have my own school, and I'm an architect as well. And I have done a lot of educational academic buildings in Korea and in USA too. So, without saying any further with this, I'm participating in this process from April, and because of that also publicly inviting people to come and look. And I don't know how many years or how many months it has been researched or explored beforehand. But first question I had was this, and everybody was getting really frowning to me. What's the pros and cons of each option? And why are we looking at the offside? And nobody seemed to answer me. At the time, I clearly remember that these are all current locations, another locations, these are for due diligence. So I was looking for these articles in 2012 and 2013, and then at the time, the same school committee explored with the Flensburg Association, and they actually showed the 6 options, and option 1 of the renovation addition was featured on the newspaper, and I have no idea what happened to the other 5 options, but that's a picture. I'm not saying necessarily I'm for the new building, I'm for the renovation addition, but I see that there is a flawed process here because it's not explored enough. Because I asked this question, none of the TSBC members answered me. Actually, they asked me to sit down. what's the pros and cons of each. And then I was expecting that to be explored further in the workshops and all other things, but I don't hear anything, and then all of a sudden it's rushed to the voting last June. But when it was invited to the Vision Council, I was warning all the architects and Colleen and John Costa at the time. I spoke up saying that please do not waste any time for choosing the due diligence locations. You have to look at the A type, B type, which is renovation on addition and the new building. What's the pros and cons to us? And I still don't understand, but I do understand that there are two groups here. There are people who joined later as a public like myself who want to learn about this process, and it's not enough there for us to feel convinced. And there's a previous group, and I'm talking about if you look at me, I'm the teachers, I'm one of you too, because I do the curriculums and all the too myself. But the curriculums and these things are not presented to us how this new building will bring the new education. I didn't hear that part. And I think at least they should be presenting that once, not by the OPM, not by the architect. I want to hear from us that this is our future education goal in the Tisbury. I didn't even hear it. Maybe I missed the whole process of over 2012 and 2013, but we are new. I want to hear about that, but it's not available for us to achieve that. And then the architects and the OPM and the other people say that, oh, we are going to explore that later. I do understand the schematic design and other processes later. So this has to be really brilliant to us to convince that what is it that really make you feel desperate that new building can do it, but the renovation addition cannot do it. I don't see the difference yet, and that's why I feel that what's going on, why they're rushing us, and it's always like inside the deal, almost like I feel that way. If you, that's why Colleen was probably mentioning that people don't trust us and all that, because we are not familiar with it yet as a public. That's number one. Number two is that I asked this question to the OPM, Richard last time, and the two other the TSBC members asked that question. Once people vote last June voting and then move on, the program can only have the flexibility of the 3% in the area. And it's not even mentioned and shared. And how can you play with all this, with the different shape? Are we still with the design and all that? Colleen will say it's not, but the area percentage of the 3% plus minus doesn't give any flexibility of the layout and all that. So I want you to all be aware. The program is going to be quite stuck with the sizes. So then there is no way to go back to re-explore whether it can be even bigger or smaller. And where is the flexible spaces, I cannot identify it as a professional myself. Sean said earlier that every professional agrees that new building is the one, and another architect said it's the one, and I'm not certain yet. Right. As a professional. So this has to be, I really want us to have a clear and a very researched discussion before we move forward. That's my asking. Another thing, I really think that Sharon mentioned a good thing. Once this research discussion and the debate, no rush to voting, then maybe people have to vote first before it goes forward. I think that's a great idea. That's the next step.
So for everybody that's here that's interested in the process, every presentation, every piece of information, the education plan, the presentation to the MSBA, which is probably, I don't know, 600, 800 pages, everything's on our website. You can sit down, you can get all that information, the pros and cons are on there, all of the options are on there, everything's been updated meeting after meeting. I can't count on my two hands how many times we've sat and watched the presentation and the response to the public and to the committee, what Richard and Peter have done. We haven't seen the same presentation twice because they keep responding to the feedback. And to hear somebody say that we have rushed this process is quite insulting. We've been doing this, I've been involved in this process for over 5 years. I don't think 5 years is rushing a project. We've been talking about this at town meeting. I know at town meeting, it's usually stopped when they talk about other funding to say what's going on with the school. We've been giving updates at town meeting. So that I take a little personal offense to, because this project and this process has not been rushed, and this is a high quality project. I'm very proud to be part of this, and I'm proud that the MSBA wants to partner with us. So there's certain things I'll listen to, but those comments are just, I won't, it's just not appropriate to say stuff like that. And I will defend this committee to the end of time that we have done our due diligence, and this has been a very transparent process. We've had a lot of meetings, we've always welcomed people to come. I've sat down with a ton of people. I offered you in that hallway out there to sit down with you when we talked that one day. So I don't, to somebody to say that we haven't been listening, just not true.
This is the first time that you are getting onto somebody. There have been people in here
Right.
that have disagreed with you, and now you're picking on him.
I'm not picking on him.
Yes, you are.
Okay, well, I did not pick on him. I'm sorry, I apologize if it looks that way. But anyways, okay, we're gonna, it sounds like from what I gather from the committee, we're not gonna take another vote. Is that correct? Is that the consensus or?
What do you want?
What's that?
You would have to have a motion. I don't know how the process.
We don't
would
have to
work
have a motion, the vote can stand.
Yeah.
The vote can definitely stand. You know, if there's anybody, I wanna make sure that this is a
We
open
have to vote
process.
and not re-vote?
No, no, we don't.
No, somebody would
No.
have to put it on the table, right?
Can you ask if anybody would change their vote?
I could ask if anybody would change their vote. If anybody wants to make a motion to change their vote, you can do that. But I've heard from everybody, we've heard it loud and clear that I don't think a revote is necessary. If there's anybody that disagrees from the committee, please speak up. This is supposed to be something that we all agree on, or at least agree on the process of how we make this decision. Anybody? So I'm going to say right now, our vote stands. It was the vote we took on June 19th. We will move forward in the MSBA process. I really appreciate everybody's input and comments and very thoughtful discussion tonight. We hear what you're saying. Doesn't mean that the concerns that were raised by some of our committee members are going to be ignored or disregarded, because they will not going forward. I can guarantee you that. The conversations will continue, and we will work as hard as we possibly can to come up with something that everybody can live with. So, okay. Motion to a second? Yes.
Before we have to, did you want to do that thing about who's going to be representing the select?
Do we need to do that before the next meeting?
It wasn't on our agenda.
Yeah, it's not. It's not.
But it's our
on your
agenda.
agenda.
Well, it's not really.
No.
Maybe let's do it right.
No.
We'll vote
I
next
don't-
meeting.
I don't have that information yet.
Okay.
All right, so, second on.
Motion to adjourn.
A second
Move
on
to
that?
adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're gonna,
Move to adjourn. We'll have a motion to adjourn.
Okay,
All in
Jamie.
favor? Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, and seconded, school committee is adjourned. Anybody else to second? You guys have a second?
Second.
Second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ben, planning board, we want to adjourn.
Oh, you know what? We have to do 5 roll calls for adjourned.